Hi folks, Lou here to discuss why most wars begin. Now, this isn't exactly part of game design, but is related to it. So I was making a video about why wars end, which has already been released, and I thought if I do this, I should make one about why wars begin. And here we are. And this is a list quite different from the reasons why wars end. This is about short run and midterm reasons, not so much about long term. Whereas the endings are about long term. And often there are several of these factors involved, not just one. So I have a list and I'll go through these 7, I think it is, one by one. The first one, not necessarily the most important, there's no particular order here, is emotional reasons, usually nonsense reasons. This is much more common in modern times when the populace often has influence over what the government does. That's in contrast to medieval and ancient times and even early modern times when the government controlled the people and was not much influenced by the people. What are some examples? Well, how about the soccer war? If you don't remember, this is between two Central American countries and started during a soccer game or as a result of a soccer game. I'm sure there were more deep-seated reasons, but that's the way it went, and hundreds of people were killed as a result. One that might be more familiar to Americans is the Spanish-American War in 1898, where the slogan was remember the Maine, because the Maine was an American ship that blew up in a Spanish harbor or a Cuban harbor. And we can include here jingoistic expressions in general, and jingoism was strong in the United States for the Spanish-American War. Another reason could be cold calculation, including what we call imperialism. So the biggest example here is Otto von Bismarck, Prime Minister in Germany, wanted to unite Germany under his Prussian monarch. At that point, Germany was a lot of separate states and some large ones. So he pursued a policy of warfare, first against Denmark, then against Austro-Hungary, and then against France. And when he met his objectives, he was done. And you can also look at this as a form of diplomacy by other means. Accident. Sometimes nations drift into war. It's what many fear in the nuclear age, that there will be an accident and the nukes will begin to fly. The Spanish-American War is another example here because the second-class battleship Maine was sunk in a Cuban harbor, and it was very likely an accident, not deliberate, but the Americans blamed Spain. And we have examples of other battleships blowing up. For example, the Japanese battleship Mutsu blew up in dock during World War II. Clearly an accident. Nobody blew it up, but it was gone. Another reason is Clausewitz's famous dictum, war is diplomacy carried out by other means. There are various translations, such as Bismarck's cold calculation. In other words, diplomacy has failed to achieve what a nation wants, and so they start a war. Another is that the military encourages or forces a war. Japan in World War II is a recent example. Now, there's often pressure from the military, but rarely does that pressure make war happen. Typically, the military must control the government for war to happen, as was the case in Japan. A big reason can be the government distracting the populace. If the populace is unhappy for economic, social, cultural, or other reasons, a way to distract them is to start a war so that everybody focuses on the foreign enemy rather than on the government. And many fear that this is going to happen with China and Taiwan, that as China gets in more and more economic and other trouble, they will attack Taiwan to distract the populace. And of course, it's possible that one or a few people who are in control of the country decide to start a war. Adolf Hitler's goals were revealed in his book Mein Kampf, which translates as My Struggle, which he wrote while he was in prison, think about 1925. He felt that Germans needed Lebensraum, living space, in the East. He didn't want to fight the West. He attacked Poland. Then Britain and France, realizing he was just going to keep attacking countries, declared war on him. And foolishly, Hitler didn't wait until he completely defeated the West before going further east to Russia. And that was his downfall in the long run. Of course, in eras where there were monarchs or dictators, they could cause a war to start single-handed. If they decided to have a war, there'd be a war because they were in control. But these are short to mid-term causes or sparks. What about the long term? The reasons for war are much like the causes of aggressive behavior in human society, the causes of much criminality, greed, envy, hubris, that is, overweening pride, and so on. Greed is obvious. You want more than you have, and you don't care who gets hurt as long as you acquire it. Resources such as oil, for example. Iraq attacking Kuwait. They wanted Kuwaiti oil. They had other reasons as well. Envy often precedes greed. You notice that someone else has what you want. Hubris is common amongst leaders and even entire nations. The USA, for example, suffers from hubris, much of it religiously connected. And China does, though in a different way. And Russia does, though in a different way yet. Or at least the Russian leadership does. I'm not sure the Russian people suffer from hubris the way many Americans do. When you come down to it, you can list most of the 7 deadly sins, more or less, as reasons why countries and peoples go to war. Thanks for listening.